Hello everyone and welcome to Group Bonus. Here we have myself, Yoshi. I'll be hosting the podcast alongside my wonderful crew member, Riley.
Dang, not even co-host, just crew member.
Look! Are
You're
you
gonna
not
do a good way
happy?
to start this podcast. No,
Co-host crew member, what's the difference, guys?
yeah, yeah. But for anyone who missed the group bonus announcement Ascension, or you're just tuning in for the first time, or even just listening to the VOD, group bonus is all about Puyo, which today's episode is gonna be the Asia Online tournaments, the ones hosted by SEGA. If you missed those were last month at this point. I think like kind of like mid-March, end of March.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, in group bonus will just be about everything play tournaments, tree battles, meta game commentary, pretty much anything that we think is interesting. We're gonna talk about it.
Yeah, given that this is the first of its kind, I think we have a lot of lee room with what we can actually do with this podcast. We're going to cover pretty much everything, as Riley said, so I'm very excited for that. And one of the other things that we're very much looking forward to in future episodes is perhaps having guests included on stream as well. So I'm keen to get everyone involved in the discussion to make sure that we're getting the most coverage of everything that we can.
Yeah, because I think some people have heard, Sega's trying to breach, the international sphere with Puyo,
Yeah.
and this is kind of like our way of doing that without necessarily always being on like a Sega stream. Like
Hmm.
we could kind of just do our part in between like our casting stuff.
Yeah, and it gives us a bit of space to cover things like community tournaments as well, which don't often get talked about on the Sega side. As I said, we have a bit of leeway being here on the Ascension channel.
Yeah, we can actually mention that story, I guess, when we get to that part of the podcast about like community stuff versus Ascension stuff
Yeah.
versus Sega stuff. It could be interesting.
Yeah, there are a fair few differences with the way they run things, but anyway, that's a teaser for a little later.
Yeah, I think that does it for our intro. We wanted to just do something small to introduce group bonus for the first episode before going on to our main topic today, which as we said earlier, the Asia Online tournaments, which
Yeah.
were I guess like the first Puyo events that happened in the new year, right? Like officially.
Yeah, pretty much. We did have the Grand Prix finals, but that is part of last year's circuit, realistically. And so the first things to kick off from Sega's side were these Asia Online tournaments.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I think no one in English community knew because they were all promoted, I think through the Facebook.
Yep. The Puyo Champions Esports Puyo Champions Facebook page, which, from what I can understand, Sega really targets Facebook for the Asian communities because that tends to be the social media platform for video gaming, and that's just wild to me. I had no idea that that was a focus for them. Like Facebook was being used for that sort of thing. It feels so foreign to
Oh
me.
yeah, yeah, Facebook. I know in Thailand it's used for streaming
Hmm.
like video games. Like it's bigger than Twitch. And I think part of that is because I'm gonna say culture difference, I guess,
Hmm.
because family is very important in overseas is something that I've learned from working with other companies in the
Sure.
Asias.
Yep.
And Facebook is a family oriented, website. And I think that kind of
Interesting.
just plays into their values.
Right.
Whereas I feel like at least in the US, it's very individualized, right? So like stuff like Twitter tends to be dominant where you can just be your single person self.
What's fascinating though is that means that there's more of an overlap between your personal life and also your other personal life. You know, how people's online
Yeah.
personalities tend to be a bit more separate from them as a person. But if you're contacting your family through Facebook and also contacting people for your esports organization through it, that's quite interesting. A bit of a mix of worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's no different from, us using Discord, right? We do our Sega casting through our Discords and we also use it for our personal life.
Yeah, that's a good point. I suppose, maybe it's not so different after all.
Yeah. I mean, the format at least was pretty similar too, right? It was the standard round robin pools into single elim.
Yeah, so if you weren't here for the Puyo Global Ranking Series last year, they had official tournaments hosted by Sega run a few times throughout the year. And as Riley said, it was this little round robin format where everyone gets split into pools. You play first to five against everyone, and then the top player makes the cut into the final tournament, which is a top eight single elimination.
Yeah, and I kind of like that format. Um, I like it more after playing it. I feel just because it's a good workaround because Japan tournaments can't get seeded.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like round robin is a good way. It's essentially like a seeding round when you think about it, right? You just play all these matches, you see how you pair up with people in the group, and then you get put into a final bracket. So it's essentially kind of like self-seeding in a way.
Yeah, it has to have that randomization element just because of the nature of the Japan Esports Union and not allowing seeding because it can be seen as sort of influencing the results too much. But, every now and then you might get like a death pool. I think, some of you guys here probably would have dealt with that when you were playing in the Sega official tournaments and you ended up with a bunch of top players in your group and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll die. But generally, I think the randomization does its job, and like you said, Riley, also lends itself to being a seeding round.
Yeah. And I was actually thinking about that because recently, there's a lot of Japanese baseball players coming to the U.S.
Mm.
to play in the U.S. And I don't know too much about baseball, but my partner's really into baseball, and I was looking at traditional sports regular seasons, and they typically have you play every team within your region
Wow,
and
that's
like a
intense.
giant round robin,
Uh
right?
huh.
So I was thinking about that in comparison to like esports,
Hmm.
where we just do tournaments and we just like seed people within the bracket,
Right.
right? We base it off of results, try to
Hmm.
be as unbiased as possible. But maybe think like maybe that's one of the reasons why they don't allow seeding because like other sports, right? You play everyone, and technically fighting games and Puyo are an outlier to that in some degree, right? You
Hmm.
don't play everyone; you play a handful of people usually.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating because that means that every single time a new season comes around or a new event comes around, you have to earn your seeding position rather than it being based on previous results.
Yeah, and I think there are like pros and cons to that. Like I think this was talked about like before our podcast here, back when it was still on your channel, where it was like I kind of liked that I got a better variety of opponents in the
Hmm.
Sega events
Yeah.
because of the randomization. Because I felt
Mm.
like, and like, in general, I do prefer seeding,
Right.
but I did feel like it was a nice change of pace compared to the other events. Like it was a good to mix in with each other because I just got like all sorts of different matchups.
Mm, yes, I think that's true too, because there are a few people that you'd fight where usually you wouldn't encounter them in bracket because of things like seeding, meaning that, oh, usually I fight the same handful of players on the way up.
Yeah, unless you're a Rick and then you play everyone, and
This
you're
is
like, you
true.
gotta win everything.
Or you play
Yeah,
your Ana and you play everyone because you make the losers bracket run, so you see everyone along the way.
true. And I guess just like kind of keep it going. The reason like these tournaments popped up was for the Asian Games, which has like their esports category, and Sega was using these online events to help raise awareness for it, which is why we had like players from Taiwan, the Philippines. I think even China had some players.
Mm. Yeah, it was a little strange that they tagged it with like global ranking series, but particularly it seems that Sega's goal with these was to direct people to the Asian Games happening. I believe across September and October is when they're planned to be. And it's really exciting because this year, for the very first time, Puyo Puyo Champions is being featured as one of the games. And so they're trying to put a big spotlight on getting people into knowing what Puyo is because even now it's not that popular of a game in Asia. It's mostly Japan centered. And although the overseas community feels the weight of, oh, like no one around here knows Puyo, I think they have a similar story happening in Asia. And that's why Sega's pushing so hard.
I actually don't know if I fully agree with it because I know a lot of the Korean players just play in the Japanese server. So I feel like, and they have like their own Kespa Cup, right?
That's
Like they
true.
have their own big Puyo tournaments. So I feel like it exists, and this is probably just the way to help the other parts of Asia to catch up.
Hmm.
Also, I'm being told my voice might be a little low.
Ooh, okay. Let me boost him so that you guys can hear him a little better. Anyway, go on in the meantime, just so that I can configure
Yeah.
this.
Um. So I feel like this is just the way to expand. There's possible like these PGRS Asia events get included in PGRS like in future versions because it there was the announcement. So we'll have to see what happens because I'm very curious if you know the Asia events join in the 4 overseas events in the futures and we end up with 6 events. But for now, I think the big topic was Rick kind of just demolished everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a bit of an upswing from him. Even from last year, I think people were really seeing his rise, but seeing him in these Asia tournaments amongst everyone else and pretty much sweeping the competition, he's really giving a show of dominance that he wasn't showing before.
Yeah, God, there's so much to talk about because I know there's the commentary stuff and there's the Rick stuff. So we're probably, I think our decision was to go commentary first,
Hmm, hmm.
just so we can talk about that side of things. Because I feel like with English commentary becoming more popular, people are very curious about who's going to be on. Getting more of the overseas community on that.
Yeah, I'm very excited. The fact that we're starting to move into Sega coming into the community to ask for some commentary is super exciting. And so, with that, shall we move into that topic?
Yeah, let's go into that topic first before we go over all the players.
Yeah, sounds good.
Oh, there's the overview/recap. I think we already did that, so I think we can go
Oh
next.
my gosh, I didn't change the slide earlier,
You
guys.
did,
It's first episode syndrome, forgive me. There we
yeah.
go.
There we go.
Hi,
Hey,
everyone.
it's okay. We're still gonna timestamp everything,
Yeah,
so
that's right.
when there's the VOD goes up, people will be able to find the specific things they want to find.
Yeah, that's right. Okay,
Would
yes.
you like? I feel like this is a good way for you to start because you have the most personal experience with Sega commentary.
Yes, I think it was one of those things that really came out of nowhere, where Sega one day was like, "Hey, Yoshi, do you want to do official casting with Sega?" And this is insane, right? Because I
Yeah,
think back to 2 years ago, right, when we had our first ever online event that Sega asked overseas players to play in, right? So this was just 2 years ago. The very first time they had what Puyo Puyo Global match and then Global Ranking match. And for the first time, we got dedicated English commentary with it. It was crazy, just never seen before. And that was already a big fuss for us. Although, with those tournaments, we didn't have full English commentary. I think it was in between matches, you would get a little bit of the casting done in English, but then the match commentary would be in Japanese. Skip forward to last year, right? And now we have full English commentary. We have the legendary duo Miku with Tom casting together in English. And this time we had like full English commentary. In fact, it was English centered because the Japanese stream was a watch stream of that English stream. And so, even just looking back at those recent years, the fact that we're getting English commentary and Sega is putting so many eggs into this basket was revolutionary for our community. We were receiving attention that we never had before. And so, for me to be invited in that very same year to participate in commentary came at such a massive shock. It was something I didn't think would be happening for a very long time, but it's been quite an honor. And honestly, it's a very different experience, which we'll talk about shortly when I bring Riley in with this. But just to kick things off, yeah, working alongside Tom and just going through the process of Sega's commentary as compared to the commentary done for community events was starkly different. So at this point, I've now casted for a few Sega tournaments. I did both of the Asia Online ones, but also last year I commentated for things like the Shiga tournament, which was the national tournament for Japan last year. And so I've been on for a few events by now, so I'm a bit more warm to it. But Riley, however, he had his first fray into it only recently. So yes, would you like to talk a little bit about your experience coming into it?
Sure, I guess for reference, the only experience I have is like US stuff. So a lot of like the US tournaments would tend to be more third party than first party,
Mm,
with some first party experience through Pokemon when I
right.
was doing that. And I was more as a referee than it was casting.
Hmm, hmm.
So this was like my first like first party experience, and it was chill. It was very fun. It was very similar to a lot of the US events in terms of we had, the rehearsal script reading that we had to do, like, but I think it was like an hour or two before the original event
Yes, that's right.
started. Yeah, because I remember I was hanging out in voice call with people before the event.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I have to go now and get ready. And they're like, it's 2 hours. Like, I didn't know if I could say, I was like, I have to do a rehearsal.
Yeah, that's right. So completely different from the vibe of these events that are run on a whim for the community side.
Yeah, it was good that we did because I think some people saw the divider I had in my webcam because I
Yep.
had to cover up all the like other video game merch I have. Because for reference, you guys couldn't see it. So I have like a lot of Pokemon merch. I have Guilty Gear. I have Cyber Connect 2 stuff with like Fuga Melodies of Steel. I have Digimon. And at first I thought it'd be okay, but then Sega, it's like higher up, like, actually, you probably should cover that just for the sake of like legal reasons.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
had to grab the divider I had in my living room and move it. It was
Yeah.
really funny.
No,
I remember they got a
definitely.
good laugh from the staff too, because they just like saw me like get up and I just come in with this divider.
They were like, wow, that's amazing. Like you were a lifesaver for that one because they literally just asked him, oh yeah, do you have something to cover this with? And then he goes 1 second, drops everything, comes in with this massive divider, and they're all just like clapping and cheering basically. It was amazing.
Oh, yeah. They were really nice. It was really nice to work with everyone. I
Mm,
do feel like my lack of Japanese definitely was a little tough because I just because thankfully we had translator,
mm,
but I know zero Japanese. I only know English, a very tiny bit of Spanish, and a little bit of Korean.
mm-hmm.
So for me, this was like I just had to sit there and wait for the translation. So I felt a little awkward sometimes because I'm just
Mm.
like I have no clue what they're saying.
Yeah, no, that's totally valid. You really are just like sitting around sometimes while they chat amongst each other, and you're like, oh, are they talking about us? Is it something we're doing? But realistically, most of the time, they're just organizing things between themselves, and when they need something from us, they will call upon us. But it is very different when the production side seems to be a bit more disconnected from you, where it's just this one guy translating for you, but everyone else is just doing the production stuff in the background. There isn't as much of a direct gate.
Yeah, it was nice though because it did kind of like give me less things to focus on. Like I
Mm.
could kind of just like focus solely on casting until like they said something.
Yeah, I think so too. It helps the flow of the stream go a little better if everything's just aligned for you.
Yeah, I also want to know like how community members felt about the webcams because I personally really like having webcams,
Mm.
but I just know it's a lot harder to set up for community tournaments. It's just a lot more effort.
Yeah, it's very different from the usual because most of the time, again, you just hop into the chat and then you start casting with your mic in the middle of wherever you are. So there's less setup in that regard as well because you don't need to make sure that you have something nice on or that you have your background well lit or anything of the sort. But it's definitely a different vibe actually being able to see the faces of the people casting, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it gives it more of a personal vibe.
Mm,
I think it helps build a bit more connection because you can kind of see like who more of the people. It's like how like fighting games and other tournaments use webcams for the players.
hmm.
It kind of just helps you connect, I think, with the more people aspect and it kind of gives you like a ground in reality, right? Because you ever play like Netplay and you kind of just like, get frustrated and you just kind of forget the other
Yep,
person across the screen
that's
is a
right.
player. It kind of is like that. It kind of just reminds you like these are real people playing. So that's
Hmm.
why I liked having the webcams for casters. I would have liked it for players too, but I totally get why they can't do that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it's the sort of thing where, just like you're saying, it gives that sense of not just having a name on the screen. Because, of course, when we do Ascension streams, you know the people, right? And you're familiar with them, and there is a level of personal connection. But when you see those people actually up there talking, and especially the body language that comes with having webcams, you really get to see another dimension to the people that you're usually watching. And as a result, it just feels more like each person not only casting, but also each person in the tournament is more of a person as well. It's not just a name of someone going up there, because not only do we get our webcams, but Sega also asks players to provide a picture of themselves as well. So even during the matches themselves, you get like those little profile pictures of each person, and usually it's an IRL picture, like an actual picture of the person. And so getting to assign that person with their gameplay is a very unique thing as well.
Yeah, I have two thoughts on that. My first thought is Tama's picture of him just eating pho was really funny compared to everyone
It's
else.
so good, right? It's so
Everyone else
memorable.
had like a medal or like some like event they were at for Puyo, and Tama's like, "Yeah, here's me in a restaurant. I'm just eating like pho."
It's such a vibe. I love it. You can really express yourself
I
through
love
that one
it.
profile picture.
Yeah, I think my second point was when we were talking to like the Sega staff and they were talking about like the community connection because I guess for reference I had to like ask if I could talk about community events,
Hmm.
which I think is fun to say because we never really know like what the line is, especially with first parties. It's like a thing for every first party from like Pokemon to like fighting games, right?
Yes.
There's like always like rules. But they were kind and let me talk about community stuff as long as I made sure to say it was a community event, not like
Hmm.
official, to
Yeah.
make sure like there was a distinction. It made
Hmm.
me realize that Sega does care about community stuff. It's just the connection is hard because the other bit of feedback I got was, how much, the broadcast team like just loved my commentary. And I feel like it was the cast of the game, but also when we were going through the bracket,
Hmm.
because I thankfully I had like day one, which I was just a lot more players I knew. But we
Mm.
were going through like all the pools. Like I could say something about every pool because I knew at least like a player, or I could like spin what I was saying to like kind of highlight at least one person in every part of the pools.
Yeah. Yeah. But that comes from, of course, the community events. Because we don't have that many official events, you have to lean on community events to give information about these players.
Yeah, and I think that was probably the biggest surprise they had of me because it sounded like they thought I was just gonna be kind of like just a friend of you,
Mm.
and they weren't really sure what to expect. And I kind of I went crazy on it. I was like, we gotta give the best commentary you've ever done.
It's true, and it was really positive. I can just tell you guys right now that they had a very highly regard of Riley coming out of that event. I think his commentary was fantastic, and if you agree, you should go tell him.
Yeah, you even tell Sega next time they do a cast, you're like, hey, can we have Riley? Let's get some more Riley
Put that in the
here.
feedback forms.
Yeah. I think
Mm-mm-mm.
that's what we did last time. Like people put me in the feedback form.
Yeah,
It
I
was really
mean,
funny. It was very appreciated.
it makes a lot of sense why they would do that, like further outreach upon hearing that sort of feedback. It does seem like Sega is listening to us, here and there, so that feedback does matter.
And I feel it was just fun. I would do it again for
Mm.
sure. Like it was just a good time.
Yeah, I mean, given the announcement of things happening this year, if we have some more official tournaments happening, that could lend itself to more official commentary from us. So keep an eye out, everyone. I'm really excited to see what the year ahead holds.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool to do commentary with Kaiser, like Tom, for
Hmm.
myself. Because I did one with Tom on a community tournament,
Yes.
but it'd be cool to do it again.
Yeah.
But I think that's enough of tooting our own horn, and we can talk about some of the. Oh God, there's so many players to talk about.
Yes, absolutely. We have to kick this section off by talking about the tiny child in the room. Oh,
The
jeez.
dominance of Rick.
Yes, that's right. Rick from Taiwan.
God, what was even there to say other, starting with like the obvious, two-time winner.
Yes.
Probably just easily the best player outside of Japan right now.
Yeah, he is currently trouncing everybody. He is the highest ranked player in Ascension as well. And although that's not everyone's first source of truth, I think it still speaks volumes about the level of gameplay that he's putting out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, I looked in that score thread. I just saw 20-1. I was like, and it was against you. I was like, what
Oh
happened
yeah,
here?
that was
What kind
yesterday's
of
match.
massacre?
I got exploded. He's playing like a completely different player, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but the conclusion I reached yesterday, not conclusion, the thought that I had, because I know this is not true, so do not quote me and say, Yoshi, you're a big liar. What I feel like is his gameplay feels as though he is placing pieces with a higher drop speed than me. Which doesn't make any sense. It's just to say that he's really fast. But it really feels that way. He accumulates resources so quickly. It's so scary.
I think that comes from before the Asia event. Rick was practicing, with players like Saki,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember he would open his stream because, fun fact, he does stream his practice,
Yes,
and I
nowadays.
would just sit there and I would just like steal notes from him, like, okay,
Yeah.
I should do this.
Mm-hmm.
I had the nice time of like talking to him a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because just we can't talk too much because like English is not his like native language. It's not something that he speaks
Yes.
very much of.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I did get from him, it's like he basically sat down and practiced as many different forms as he can, but also like how to build into those forms, like just every shape you could think of. So I think part of it is his speed, but the other half of it is he knows how to build so far in advance now that things will just complete super quickly.
Yeah, that's a really, really important thing to point out because it's not just the Puyo drop speed, but also when people talk about efficiency, they're usually talking about how to make sure every piece works. But truly, if you want to peak in efficiency, you can't just make pieces work in the moment. They have to work for you later on. You have to be setting things up so that they will link to your main chain later. And his ability to use those various shapes in order to make different parts of his chain work at the exact same time, juggling all of that while also playing a really aggressive gameplay, a really aggressive mid game sometimes as well. It's just completely astounding. Things come together so cleanly for him, and it truly speaks to the fact that he's been playing with the JP players because that feels like Japanese player gameplay. It's been a long time since I've felt like the top player title has truly been threatened for me, and that's not to say like I'm trying to brag about it, but most of the time I've at least been able to still win sets against the top player outside of Japan, right? Like, if we're playing in a big Western tournament, I have a chance of first place. With Rick here, now that chance feels like it's decreasing, and that's not a bad thing. I think it just might mean that we're in a new era for Western Puyo, and I'm really excited for that.
I think we are because Rick is like now also like the first, I think, overseas player to break 3,500 like against like while playing against like the high level Japanese players on like Switch Net Play.
That's
Like we've had
nuts.
moments where like yeah,
Hmm.
I was gonna say we've had like moments where like some Western players would get over there, but it's usually because they would play like other Western players.
Yeah,
It's a lot different to get to that rating through Japanese pros. So like Rick is going insane. He's easily my favorite, I think, for PGRS this
yes,
year. It's
I
just so
think so
hard to see
too.
anyone beat him.
Speaking from that, like playing against those players, since I'm in a similar time zone, I can definitely speak for that. When you're in this time zone and you're playing against the JP players, and I can speak for both myself and Acliv, because I've talked to him about this, and we talk a little bit about, oh yeah, what kind of rating do you want to try and peak at? And 3,200 is already hard enough to maintain. 3,300, I think Acliv is along the lines of saying, oh, I've never been there before. And I think he has, but it's more so that, like, even if he reached it for a moment, he fell completely out of it straight away. And for myself, I reached 3,300 recently and then completely fell out of it very soon after. So to not only get to 3,300, but to push past 3,400, and then also push into 3,500 is insane.
Yeah.
That is a complete other level above.
No player is doing that. Like I recently just broke 3,000 for the second time, and I can barely hold on to that because it's so hard if, when you bump into like players like KTR. I think sometimes you can bump into Saki, like
Mm-hmm.
Delta, and all them. And they're not gonna hold back. They're gonna play that play like it's serious, or they're
Yeah.
gonna try and practice something. And they're gonna beat you down. So you have to be like playing really well to beat them.
Yeah. And not only beating those top players, but also when you're at 3,500 rating, the lowest you can match with is like 3,000. So for us, if say you're a 3,000 player, the 2,500 player is like the low level player. For Rick, at 3,500, the 3,000 player is his low level. And if he loses that match, he loses about 30 rating. So those matches have to be like free wins for him. Not free as in they're easy to do, but he has to win them. Otherwise, he just jumps down so much, right? So
My last set
it's
against
completely
Rick was
different.
like 5-20, and I'm like, how do I even get 5 points?
Yes, exactly, right? Sometimes it feels like you're fluking it a little bit against him because I think given that he's still practicing and training, he can still make mistakes, of course. Um, but otherwise, outside of those blunders, his gameplay is so solid, so consistently.
he like even said last time I was playing him, like he held off entering like the AJ games because he wanted to keep practicing and grinding because he didn't feel like he was good enough yet.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
I'm like, you destroyed everyone. You're like, exactly. He's like, but he's aiming to be as good as players like Yuki, and like Pipo Neer, like that's his goal,
That's
and
right.
he is clearly very serious about it, and he's willing to put in the work too. So I just don't know who's supposed to keep up with him. I know
Hmm.
we'll eventually do like an episode where we talk about like players that we to look out for,
Hmm.
but I feel
Hmm.
like we just do Rick section here. Like I don't know who beats Rick. I feel like Void did it last time, but it was still really close down to the wire. But now Rick has gotten like all this Japanese practice. He's gotten like this crazy, insane climb. The
Hmm.
fact that he's like even contested Yuki, like Yuki played Rick and Hisha, and Yuki was trying
Yep.
to play like some of his secondary forms first, but eventually like Yuki had to be like, wait, I have to play you kind of seriously.
Yes,
So
that's right.
Rick had like an insane lead until like 16 points when Yuki finally took it back and like clutched out the set.
Yeah, yeah. I think the overall set result was like 16-20 as a result of that. That's unheard
And
of.
that is nuts. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not anyone I know overseas usually gets that far, like a first to 20 against a Japanese player at Yuki's level.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, anyone even in like that sort of range is really hard to get 10 points against in a first to 20. So to be able to get 16 against the person who is perhaps regarded as literally the best Puyo player in the world right now is exceptional.
Yeah, especially when you think about like the old highlights for overseas was like Dan beating Pipo in like a first to five.
Hmm.
Or I think Rihanna went like 4-5 in Saki in the first to five Vortex Gallery tournament
Yeah,
like years ago. And you put that in context with like the 16-20, and I'm like, this is not to diminish the other two, but like this is I feel like an even better result than those two.
yeah, that's right. And that's exactly why I'm just pointing at Rick and being like, he is the leader for this new era right now. He's currently leading the English, not sorry, not just the English scene, but the Western player scene far beyond the point that we've reached before. And so, more than anything, I'm just inspired to try and reach up to his level.
It feels like right now the only player able to contest him is Senred.
Hmm.
Senred was like the only person last year I could remember like reasonably beating Rick at any point.
Yeah, but it's hard to say because we haven't seen him practicing recently. I mean, he might be doing his own thing at the moment, but without actually getting to see him in events, which is the main place we would usually see him, right? Otherwise, he just doesn't exist in our community at all. We'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. So I guess for now, Rick, just overall number one for me. I don't know who beats this kid.
Yeah, yeah.
Should we talk about what do we like? Have a second place master Acliv?
Yes. So of course, when it comes to the Asia online tournaments, the player base is the Asian players. So we don't have our usual Western players here, like myself or Void or Dan. And so who else do you usually think of when it comes to Asian players who are currently at the top outside of Japan? We have Rick, but of course we have Acliv, also from Taiwan and formerly the leader in the Taiwanese scene, in terms of gameplay. But nowadays, Acliv is feeling the heat as well. He feels as though he's not keeping up with Rick.
That was last year, but in like 3 years, Rick went from just losing to Acliv into we're even the second year, and suddenly third year he's just like super ahead of him. Like the
Yeah.
growth in 3 years is insane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's right. But despite the fact that Rick is currently dominating, Acliv is not slouching in any regard. He's very consistently still able to play at the top Western play outside of Rick's level. So, he's always going to toe with myself, Void, Dan, the other usual suspects when it comes to the top players. And so during these Asia Online tournaments, although Rick came in first place both times, Acliv was second place in both instances as well. He has that consistent run of making it to the grand finals because everyone else is still a very manageable fight for him.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think Acliv has gotten worse by any means. I think Rick just got so much better, and I feel like Acliv is still getting better as well.
Mm, mm,
I feel like the tough part for Acliv might be a stylistic thing with Rick.
mm-hmm.
I think Acliv plays a bit more defensive. I think Acliv is plays similar to like how I would say myself plays. Like I
Mhm.
think we're the two of the most defensive players in Puyo, where we
Yeah.
wait for our opponents to overextend and then try to punish the overextension.
Yes, I think so too. And even like when you come down to his mechanics when he plays the game, you'll notice that he is the sort of player who actually will just like hover up you for a little bit and just like do the floor kick to think for a little bit, just to check what the opponent's doing or to really think through what his next move is going to be. It's defensive and it's slow and it's calculated. But it's interesting because that matchup against Rick, who is super speedy and precise with his moves, it just feels like Acliv gets overwhelmed by that, even though with his slower gameplay, he's often able to keep up with the other Western players because his moves are so well planned out. But you don't have that time to plan if your opponent's going at max speed and matching you on efficiency.
Yeah, it's tough because since Rick has like all the ways to build these new shapes now, Acliv needs to learn more about where the vulnerabilities are. Because I was watching some of Acliv's sets.
Mm-hmm.
I was reviewing Acliv versus Neru, and Acliv was doing the stuff you're mentioning, where every time he would get to like second floor, he would start hovering a piece every now and again to watch what Neru was doing.
Yeah.
And so Neru would commit to like a super dangerous extension, and Neru would be like not checking to see if they are safe.
Yeah.
And Acliv would just be like, okay, I do one chain, and now I do two double, and now you're dead off the top.
Yes, that's right. That's right. It's very good game plan generally, but without the execution, it sort of falls apart. But again, against any other player right now, I still feel like his style is very suited to just adapting to any given opponent because he has that more defensive play. Because he's not playing aggressive, he's not wasting resources.
Yeah, I think it's still a viable strat. I think defensive gameplay is still viable
Hmm.
because I think about like the Oi League set for with Charmeru and Live, where Charmeru kind of just played defensive and let Live kind of take himself out for a
Hmm.
bit.
Yeah.
So like it's possible. I just think Acliv just needs to figure out more shape to let him stay defensive
Hmm.
while also letting him poke more with Rick. Because I feel like sometimes with Acliv it kind of goes into flat stacking a lot or like
Yeah.
sandwich,
Yeah.
which I think is totally fine against like everyone else, but against high levels, I just feel like some of his forms don't offer him much flexibility in terms of defense department.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the way that I could describe him as a player is sort of very classical, theoretical Japanese player. So think of someone like Momokun who has that similar style, and he was dominant for the longest time, right? And people regard him as a defensive player, and that's because he could just match everyone else's moves with such precision. Acliv, I think, is going down that path at the moment, and it's so interesting because it's at odds with what the Western meta is doing right now, and we will elaborate on this soon. But just quickly, while we're on this topic, currently the Western meta is very oriented around aggressive gameplay, and so to have someone who is doing quite the opposite of that and still able to play really well is a bit of a beacon of light in this time. But if he wants to keep up with the likes of Rick, he's really going to need to step up the defensive gameplay to the next level as well. So there's a lot of evolution that is
Yeah.
being forced to happen.
And this is like the tough part, I guess, for like Acliv and myself, where it's just like when there's not a lot of people playing like the same style as you, you kind of have to come up with it yourself.
Hmm.
And it can be pretty difficult because you're kind of just like throwing with your own ideas until you stumble upon someone else and see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Uh, I think aggressive gameplay is still 50-50 because like if you look at like Japanese sets, like aggressive gameplay can work,
Hmm.
but actually think it loses more often to defensive gameplay than not. Like, look at Yuki, right? People try to attack Yuki all the time, and Yuki's like, "Okay, I'll just dig. I'll play safe, and then I'm just gonna dig this out. I have my defense still because he knows how to like balance his board very
Exactly.
well.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
think it's very possible for Aklev to do the same thing. It
Hmm.
probably will just take some time because it's easier to win with a random aggressive attack than it is to calculate the defense against it.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Usually, then also if you're the first to attack and the opponent then defends, you can. It's easier to calculate the counter attack because it's against whatever you sent in the first place. So if you send a 5 chain and they send a 6, oh, the only thing I need to worry about is the +1 from a 6 chain. Like I know that damage output, I can defend against that, and so again, being the aggressive player makes it slightly easier to do that score calculation as you're going. So again, defensive gameplay is very challenging, but when you get it right, you really can just choke a person who's playing aggressively because every single one of those moves will have a response.
Yeah, because you have to like learn how to balance like trash and like know when you can tank trash against an aggressive player. We also have to know like how to not only rely on individual link sendbacks to defense, like like you're saying, like the 5 to 6. You have to know when to make like the 3 that blocks a 5, or like
Hmm.
the 4 power that'll overtake the 5 to 6 range, which can be really difficult to do on your second floor because you risk cutting your chain so much until you get it right.
Mm-mm. Yeah, exactly. You need to be very careful with your resource management to make sure it doesn't cut into too much of your chain. Because the moment you do that, well, the aggressive player just goes, okay, follow up, follow up, follow up, and you're dead.
Yeah, I think Acliv can do this. I think he can learn it. I still think he's going to be a pretty big threat in overseas. Like he basically was top 4 almost every tournament.
Yeah, that's right. He's still very consistent as a player, and so he's very much going to be a threat. And if he can level up that gameplay, I think he can still continue to stand toe to toe with Rick, despite what he's been saying about Rick overtaking. He's still got a good chance.
It's so funny to talk about. It's like, oh, we're like, oh, so doom and gloom. He can't beat Rick, and it's like he can't beat one person out of the other 199. Like
Seriously.
there's like 200 people on like the PGRS register,
Yeah.
and some of our events got like what 50, and he played in Latam events, he played in English events, he played in Taiwan like Asia events, and
Hmm.
he's like, oh, I only lose to Rick and maybe sometimes Villanar or Senred.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
like, oh my god, he only loses to one person. The horror.
Oh no. So tragic. Yeah. But you definitely feel that when you're at the top. There's that pressure to
Oh
be
yeah.
the top player. And so anyone who stands in your way is just like a massive mountain, despite the fact that it is one single person.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think if Rick is my favorite, I don't know if Acliv isn't my favorite, but I think for sure he's in my top 5, top 4 for next
Yes.
year. Or this year, excuse me.
Yeah. Well, with that being
Oh.
said, that is the current state of the top players within this bracket. But I think interestingly, what the Asia Online tournaments made us do is because we didn't have the other top, like English speaking players, say, sitting at the top of the bracket, we got to see some players that we don't usually get to see in this event. Shall we talk about them?
Yeah, so these two players were TRToxic and Nairo. So funnily enough, I think on stream I said for TRToxic that I did because I didn't know if he had played competitively at all. But it looks like after the event, I learned that he's just active in the Taiwanese server and probably just doesn't enter overseas events.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I think he mainly just enters Asia tournaments now, from what I see. And he reminds me a bit of the mid level that we have in overseas with like Cooper, Anna, and like myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or Anna's more high level still. Actually, sorry, I'm going to correct that a little bit. Um, where they can compete, they can have competitive rounds, but it does they can't like take the lead very easily. They can't hold it.
Hmm.
And Nairo on the other side is someone who played in the second term, which I didn't get to commentate, but I have played them. I played some friendly sets with them, and we were really even. I think I barely clutched out the second Nairo, if I
Hmm.
remember correctly.
Hmm.
And Nairo is like kind of on the cusp of 3K. Like he's in 3K, but he's kind of like myself, or like we just got there, kind of like bottom of it.
Yeah, yeah, sort of like
So
drifting in
they're
and
both,
out.
yeah. So they're both pretty skilled players.
Hmm.
It's just that they haven't hit that peak of Acliv or Rick.
Yeah, that's right. I think they're in that same position as Riley says, where they're competitive against the top players, and in fact they managed scores of 4 to 10 against Rick was Toxic score, and then Nero got 3 to 10. And so although the scores don't sound fantastic, managing to get a few points off of the current contender for top player is actually a pretty big feat. And so to be able to do that really puts your mark as the sort of like higher end of mid-level players.
Yeah, and I think one thing that was pretty interesting was they didn't get like the same like style of 4 to 10,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. Because let's see, because TRToxic, right? When he played Rick, 'cause I believe they both played Rick in the semifinal, so they both had first to tens.
Correct, correct.
TRToxic started off like really strong against Rick, They were pretty out the gate with points.
Hmm.
They got their first three in the first six rounds where it was just like one-to-one trading a lot
Hmm.
because TRToxic can balance a lot of Hellfires, very standard GTR builds. They even had like I think the occasional like one chain cleanup of like six groups of Puyo.
Yeah.
It was just they couldn't maintain the length and like the digs to get down,
Hmm.
whereas Nairo, same thing, right? It's pretty good GTR, very standard, but it kind of like had a slow start, right? They kind of just dropped like the first 4 or 5 rounds
Hmm.
before they started picking up rounds against Rick. So they kind of like different points of strength. Where Toxic starts off really strong, but kind of can't get that adaptation in.
Hmm.
Where Nairo starts off slower, but then could kind of start to adapt to Rick later on.
Yeah, interesting that they have such different ways of gaining points. But I think ultimately the game plan still ends up being similar, where you try your best at the things you're good at, but eventually Rick is going to be able to see through the points that you are weak in, and in order to take advantage of that, he'll just go ham, and that's when he takes a set win usually.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably the weakness for Toxic and Nairo.
Hmm.
Uh, is that their gameplay was pretty one-dimensional. It's always focused on the GTR. I don't think we really saw any reversible attempts like Acliv or Rick would do if they
Yeah.
got buried. They couldn't really, find those secondary chains or alternate triggers as much.
Hmm. Hmm.
They were definitely very reliant on like the very traditional GTR. It goes left, it goes right.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, exactly. And so, without being able to be more flexible in your gameplay, you'll fall into the same patterns. And once a higher level player can dissect those patterns, it becomes very easy to overwhelm.
Yeah, I do think they would do very well in the overseas events. I think TRToxic and Nairo could beat a lot of players in overseas personally after watching them. It was like only one set each against like Rick, but from the stuff that we did get to see, it felt like, oh, I could see this person like holding their own against Wiz or even beating them or holding their own against like Kupari or Neru
Yeah,
or something like our upper half.
because it takes good fundamentals to get there in the first place, and I think that's something that they do have. It's not quite as strong as the top players, but it's quite solid, and so that's again another mark of being that level of player is that your fundamental skill level is such that you can play consistently in the first place.
Yeah, and you
Mm.
You think about some of the Taiwanese players we usually see outside of Rick and Acliv, and it's Tofu
Hmm.
and Iced Water.
Yeah.
But I believe Toxic and Nairo and them right out got out of groups while those two kind of struggle. Even though like Tofu, sorry, not Tofu, um, Iced Water and them like right there's no Tofu and Iced Water are like both really strong.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's right. I mean, in general, the Taiwanese community is just full of really strong players, but exactly, right? Like, amongst all of them, Toxic getting out is very different.
Yeah, and if you think about like how Tofu and Ice Water did during the PGRS, right? They were beating up a lot of our mid tiers.
Yes.
Like I think Tofu beat Kuberi like early on in the season,
Hmm.
and Ice Water was like taking out some random players. So if those two are losing to Toxic and Naru, it feels like it also just tells me like these two are probably like that next tier, kind of like how we have Dan and Void on the below like Rick Acliv, or like well Dan's probably more tied with Acliv, but like they're kind of like the tier down
Yes,
in a
exactly.
sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Like the lower end of like top players, you could say.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I hope we get to see them more. I hope they actually try to enter some overseas stuff because I feel like they can make things very exciting.
I think so too. I hope that they don't feel limited to just the Asian tournaments. And I don't know if that would just be to do with community reach or if it might just be something like time zones at the end of the day. But hopefully we can accommodate them, whatever it takes.
Yeah, I hope so too. Because I think it'd be cool to see them enter overseas. I actually would really like to do a Taiwan/Asia crew battle with like either English or with like US. I think that'd be really
Yeah.
cool to kind of get more sight of them.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think that was all my thoughts for those two. I think they're both really good. I hope we see more of them.
Yeah, definitely. And so moving from the upper level players, there are a few players that we got to see just in the top eight situations. So let's talk about some of those guys.
Okay. We can start with TAMATAMAZ Go.
Yep, yep.
Uh, I, I think they both, I was kind of surprised because I wasn't really sure how either would do. I played them both a little bit,
Mhm.
and they have solid fundamentals, but it's kind of hard to know when you have like random pools, like
Yeah.
how easy it'll be to get out. I don't think it was easy for either of them. I think they both had to clutch out their pool.
Mhm.
Like I think Neko even pulled off an upset, and like Tama's fought for their life too.
Yeah.
They both managed to get out, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Tama plays a little bit in like last year's PGRS too, but not too much. So it was kind of hard to gauge their strength.
Yeah, yeah. And then whereas Neko, our other highlight player, from the lower part of these brackets, an up and coming player. Neko only started showing up in Ascension itself, February, and so Neko hasn't been playing for very long. But to be able to hold their own against some of these players in the top eight, like to get out of pools and then get into top eight, is very impressive in such a short span of time. They're leveling up quite quickly.
Yeah. Especially not for competitive, because going from maybe they clearly had some experience with Puyo beforehand, but at least for like competitive, they're pretty fresh from what I can tell.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Uh, Thomas? Let's start with Thomas first. Thomas was interesting because I feel like Tama has plays a good bit, but I think it was the speed was the biggest factor for me.
Yeah, that tends to be a big struggle for players against the top branch because when you get to the top players, they're just holding down almost all the time, right? And so to compete with
Yeah,
that is dreadful.
yeah, because I actually think their adaptation game was good because I think when they lost to the player I kept calling Fee,
Oops.
it's not actually Gonzalvo, so we'll talk about that later. But
Yep.
for Tama's, like they tried to adapt their gameplay, right? When they realized like their chains weren't working, they
hmm
were trying to work in more two chain attacks.
Mm.
It's just like single two chains just don't do enough, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's right. You need to pack a bit more of a punch behind them to make them effective.
Yeah, because when you list like one row or a row and a half of garbage, you need that one row to land somewhere really vital. And if their stack is already flat, then it's just a super easy dig.
That's right.
Or if the two level layer of trash just lands on like the side that RNG like the safer side, and it's like, well, they're dangerous as it's really easy to clean up still. It's like it's just gonna be hard to get any mileage out of it, and you just used resources.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a tough time.
Yeah, but otherwise it's like it's a good sign to see like, oh, okay, you realized what your win con wasn't working, so you try to swap up your strategy. So like I think there's good signs for Tama.
Yeah, if you're the type who can adapt your game plan, even if your skill isn't quite there to meet it yet, but you understand what's required of you, I think that's a sign that you're on a route towards becoming a really strong player.
Yeah, because at least right now I think Tama would beat like any kind of like casual or like lower end competitive player.
Yeah.
And he's probably around like around the mid level for me. I think he's definitely not a beginner. I think he has good like at least ideas of how to play the game. It's just trying to solidify them.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yes, then for Neko, it was a lot of just sandwich in like some GTR, right? That was like
Yeah.
my main remembrances.
Pretty bread and butter, I would say, which honestly, when you're in these situations and you just need consistency, that's the sort of thing that you do want to drill. You want to make sure that you're doing things that you're comfortable with, because if you do them well, you will be able to dominate, at least within your skill level, against people who will instead blow up their chains or cut or that sort of thing. If you can avoid all of those common, like, rookie mistakes, as we might call them, then you're pretty much in the clear.
Yep, because for me, I think Neko's strength, right, was kind of they could pump out a consistent chain, right?
hmm
Now they weren't gonna like int anything, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
they were gonna have a nice chain, they're gonna play like solidly, and they're gonna go from there. But then they kind of like the same some similar issues similar to Tama, where it's like the speed just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like TRToxic, I think is who they played in the first round,
hmm
and Toxic just like outsped them and kind of just out efficiencyed them.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Because as much as it's good that your chain didn't cut and it did reach its max length, if you're not playing fast enough, that max length is going to be lower than that of your opponent. And so, of course, you did a good job, but it's not quite at the skill that you need it to be yet.
Yeah, because the tough part I think with Neko is you can tell that they mainly build standards based on like how high the pillars they make,
Mm.
right? Especially like I think it was like their common they would do like 3 stacks,
Oh, yes, yes,
and it's
yes.
hard to do like it's hard to extend anything on a 3 stack,
Yeah,
but it's really tanky against weaker players. Like it's really
yes.
strong.
Yeah, that's right. And usually those players are like one chaining a lot to make their chain work, or basic two chain, so you don't get buried very much. And so it's a good plan and a good game plan against those players who will only be sending you small groups of garbage at a time as you construct your chain.
Yeah, I think the other main thing I remember too is like Neko just needing some help on the attack and defense side because it was like they couldn't really attack Toxic because Toxic would just defend themselves and then dig out.
Hmm.
And they kind of had like the same issue with Tama's where it was like they do like the small two and some like two trash and Toxic's like okay. Oh,
Yeah.
and you know like
Exactly, right? And then what next?
yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah, so anyway, Toxic just like extend out of it. And it's something that was like the tough part for Neko. But Neko has been practicing. Like, I still see them look for sets in Ascension. They still play. I mean, they're not bad by any means, right? They were getting like 11 chains,
Yeah.
even against Toxic. It's just Toxic built better 11 chains, you
Yeah,
know?
that's right. And so there's a lot of hope for them as a player because again, they are only very recently entering the scene, but they're working hard as well, which will pay out really well as the year goes on, I reckon.
I think so too, especially because like I feel like one of the harder parts getting into competitive is finding that 11 chain length. But
Yeah,
the fact that Neko is already there means they just have to do like for me sometimes feel like the easier part, which is just learn how to defend yourself,
yeah, yeah.
right? Like learn how to attack and like make it take advantage of your shapes.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because when they can, right, they can get rounds off people and they can take like rounds off of like some of like the other players like Toxic.
Yeah.
It's just finding that consistency is always tough when you're on the newer end.
Mm, mm.
So, because you know this is it. I'll talk about their essential sets too, right? Because they build a lot of sandwich, build a lot of GTR.
Hmm.
And at first they were very focused on just like winning every set, it felt like.
Mm.
But they kind of changed to where they took a much more practice oriented stance.
Hmm.
And so now I feel like they're trying to learn more attacks, trying to learn more defenses, which has made them, in my opinion, a scarier player to play against now.
Yeah, you've really got to vary your practice habits if you want to be able to level up. Because if you do the same game plan over and over again against the same opponents and you're winning sets, sure your rating might go up, but your skill definitely won't.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, right? Is like you want put number go up, but you also don't want to stagnate, so you need that balance.
Yep. And I think Neko is, as Riley is saying, doing a good job of keeping their practice intact in order to fulfill that. So definitely good on them, and I'm excited to see how they improve throughout this year as well.
Yeah, especially because like, since they're mainly hanging out on Ascension, we might see them enter Ascension events if the time zone is good, and that would be really interesting.
Yeah, it was a bad time for them to join because there's a bit of a dry spell in Ascension for tournaments, and so when they finally kick back on, I hope to see them there.
Yeah, because they have been taking sets off Heaven, so and they've been holding their own against like players like Marquez, so like they're doing pretty well. Like they're above 1.0, which is usually takes a little bit for some players,
Hmm.
so they're not bad by any means. So I'm very curious to see how they'll do during the PGRS season.
Hmm. Hmm. Same here.
Then we have our final player. Ready to shout out. Okay, so shoutouts to Fee, who was actually called Gonzalez, that we learned after the stream because we did not put together because they gave us a list of the countries that everyone was from,
Yep.
right? And somehow we did not put together the PHI is Philippines after getting the country sheet from Fee because it says Fee, then Fee Gonzalez, and I was like, oh, maybe Fee's just their name because that's a common name.
Yeah,
It's
that's right.
Philippines.
Oh,
Gonzalez
guys.
is their actual name.
It's just so weird because usually people put that at the end of their name, like blah 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 JPN or blah 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 AUS, like my name, or they put blah 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 TW. But like Gonzalvo decided to put the PHI at the beginning of their name, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that's not
Are
your
you
name.
are you
Oops.
blaming Gonzalvo. How dare
No,
you?
I would never. It's my fault. But it's just because it didn't follow convention. So I'm giving us like the slightest out, but also we totally need to own up to the fact that we messed that
My,
up.
my total
No.
my total excuse is that it's faster to say fee than it is to say Gonzalvo.
Oh, but like, that's their name, Riley. Well, that just reminds me of those days when people would call me Australia because we'd have like another Yoshi in the scene, and then they'd just be like, "Oh, this guy's name is Australia," and it's like, "Oh, I guess it works because no one else from Australia is playing." But um,
I,
yeah, I think just quickly on that as well, it's really nice to be seeing more breadth in the different countries that we're seeing enter. Because I think last year a big thing for Sega was increasing the number of countries that are playing in things like the PGRS. And so during the Sega
yeah,
Online tournament, it's nice seeing a few players outside of the usual regions coming in and playing and representing their country.
true. And honestly, Gonzalvo was a very interesting player to watch because he was the only one building tail first, and he would
Mm.
just build random attacks that would work, and it was really funny.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. It was a very. I would say it's sort of what we'd consider back then as more like freeform. Just kind of build whatever, make sure
Yeah,
everything lines up, but it didn't follow any particular pattern.
I ran like a one really nasty all clear. It was so gross because I had no clue how he built it out of that tail. He just ended up finding it to let himself get a chance in one of the rounds.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very crazy gameplay, but sometimes crazy is what you need to work. And so Gonzalvo did a good job of seeding that in.
Yeah, I think it's just refreshing to watch as a viewer too, because you just see this person doing like different things from the usual.
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh, there's something cool and different.
It's true because leading up, you probably expect people like Rick or Acliv to be there, and while the gameplay is always astounding and really wonderful to watch, it's nice seeing someone doing something a bit different.
Yeah, because it just shows you the creativity isn't dead and that like you can still do random things and get some level of progress in Puyo
Yeah,
at all levels.
that's right. And honestly, it's that sort of gameplay that lends itself to also being on a good path to improvement because you're trying to be more experimental. If you stick too much to the textbook things, then you'll get tunnel visioned a lot of the time.
True, and I think sometimes like branching out and trying things like outside of the textbook kind of gives you more insight to like why things in the textbook are in there versus things that aren't. Like sometimes you just need like that self-experimenting, you know?
Yes, that's right. There's a level of understanding that you reach by experimenting that you can't otherwise.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, you know. Maybe he'll come up with something spicy next time and it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. But with that, I think that's pretty much all the players that we wanted to highlight from these tournaments. It was really nice seeing both some old names that we expected to come through alongside some players that, we hadn't seen around before.
Yeah, like I'd say Rick, Acliv, Tama were like the players we have seen before.
Mm,
And then Toxic, Nairo, Gonzalvo, and Neko were like the new blood. It was cool.
yeah, it's a nice mix.
Even if not traditional new blood for Toxic and Nairo, but you know, first
Yes.
time seeing them.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Good to see them in a competitive environment because it's something that we so rarely get to see, but otherwise.
So I guess that leaves us with our last topic, which was the big difference, I think, from these tournaments compared to the other PGRS events, which was the tournament prizes.
Yeah, that's right. Very different this time around.
Yeah, so PGRS overseas, you know, had money prize pool,
Hmm.
which was cool, but I think I even put my feedback for that. Like, I was like, oh, this is nice, but it's not really a motivator for me personally.
Yeah.
I think I put medals in the feedback. So to see medals come in for the Asia Online tournament, I was like, oh my God, they listened. They heard me.
That's right. Yeah.
Because in my opinion, the medals are cooler because the money, right, was just gonna go to some random thing that you want, maybe, because it wasn't like a large sum, right? It was enough for like to buy something nice.
Yeah, I don't know. You could maybe buy a Switch game or something these days with it.
Yeah. Whereas like the medal is like remembrance. You know, you just hang on your wall. It's there. It's something physical you can keep to remind you of like, hey, I won this event. So I thought it was really cool. I personally prefer that.
I think the physicality of it is really different for a lot of players because again when so much of us have grown up with an online scene you get used to things being intangible like oh that's the name of a player or a picture of a player or I'm playing on this online tournament and so for something to be mailed home and you to be able to like hold up this medal and be like hey I actually have physical proof that what I'm doing is at this high level on a global scale, I think it's inspiring for both yourself, and it also gives you something to show to, other people in your life, IRL, so, friends, family, that sort of thing. It's cool bragging material.
Yeah, and it just like helps you set the timeline of like things that have happened because before if you want to like keep a timeline of your improvement or like your achievements, you would have to like write on like a Google sheet
Yeah.
or like take a picture of the bracket. But that is something like it's a lot easier to track. Like this is a big moment because I got something from it.
Yeah,
I mean, Rick
precisely.
even changed his profile picture to the medal.
What a
Like
flex
it's no
from him,
longer
right?
him. It's so funny. I love it.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's like it's cool stuff you can do because he's the only one right now technically with any gold medals from PGRS because there were only two and he won both of them.
Yes, exactly right. So, really special for him to be setting up something that none of us have been able to experience before. So, congrats to him for being the first one to get, those
It might
official
even
things.
stay that way
That's
when you think
true.
about it because if there's another four PGRS events, they do medals, and Rick wins all four of them. He would still be the only one to get equal medals from SEGA.
Nah, Rick's got to watch out. I'm on my way up.
Yeah. Someone's got he can't win all four. We have to stop him. We
Yeah.
can't let him get Thanos powers.
It's true, it's true. It would be too much for the world to handle. No.
Yeah, I guess like to kind of get back on track. Yeah, price pools for East 50. I forget how much the yen was actually. Was it 5,000? No, it wasn't 5,000.
Uh,
It was like 20,000, right?
I'm trying to think. It's been a while since the
Yeah,
Sega official tournaments. Ooh.
yeah. Unless you want to pull up this
Yeah,
thing real
yeah.
quick,
Maybe
because I
have a
actually
look
did
and
not
see.
think about that.
Mm-mm-mm.
Because I remember it definitely depends on like where you live.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's 30,000 yen, which is like not bad.
Okay. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
not bad money by any means. Let me see, because I'm terrible at the math.
Oh, especially to
Let me see if
USD. It's so
I want,
weird.
yeah,
Let's
because
find out.
USD is like the privilege,
Everyone knows how to
right?
convert to
Yeah,
USD.
yeah. So it's $190 right now.
Okay.
It's actually less than before because the yen went up in value recently.
Right, right.
So it's probably more like 190 around the time,
hmm
which for someone in the US, it's like not a lot.
hmm
It's nice, but it's about like 10 hours of pay, which is still really good. Like it's not a
Yeah.
bad thing by any means, but for us, like it's kind of just like, oh, it's a little something, but it's not something you can really take off time from work to enter these events
Yes.
for.
Exactly, exactly.
Like for me, I work weekends, right? So I have to take time off of work.
hmm
So unless I win that event, like I'm not getting paid, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So for me, it's like I want to take off time from work. I have to like work other days to make up for it.
hmm
Whereas I think 30,000 yen is probably worth a lot more in other areas, so it's probably a lot nicer.
Potentially, but I think even then, a one-time payment really, it might make up for that one occasion, but it's not something that sticks with you the same way that something physical like a medal does as well.
Yeah, it's like cool like little brag for a little bit, but eventually the money goes away and then you don't have it anymore, and then the medal just you can put up on the wall. Like I think I put up my medals on the wall recently.
Yeah, nice little display you've got going on.
Yeah, so those may appear next time I do webcam commentary. We'll see.
Ooh, he's so fancy, guys.
I mean, yeah, because I felt like after this like complete side note, because I feel like the prizes often just like give your room more life.
Mm.
Like it's just like a cool decoration you have in your room.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really just like a personal mark, right? Like this is something that I
Yeah,
personally have received. It's exclusive.
yeah. So I hope we get that this year. I would totally take medals in the overseas PGRS over money for
hmm
sure, easily.
Yeah, I think so too. So, fingers crossed that Sega offers more medals and such.
I think if one day we're lucky and we have, because there's like five overseas events technically, each one should be a trophy of each different color Puyo.
Oh, his writing is
That'd be
this
so
fire.
Yeah, dude, that'd be so sick. But I don't know if Sega would ever do that because I'm sure it might be expensive to get like 5 custom trophies
Yeah, that's
like that. But if we ever
true.
got big enough, that'd be so sick.
That would be really fun.
But that's it for prizes for me. Like I don't know, I've just always been a medal guy over money guy, just
Mm.
from like competing in other games. So I have my bias.
Yeah, I think so too. I think a lot of people can take value from having that item in their house. So I don't think anyone would complain if they change the prize pool to medals, because again, I'm not sure how many people are playing Puyo for the money in the first place, right? So it's more important to have an item like that than to gain like a small sum of money. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, my rent's like $3,000 and 200 from it's like it's not. It did something, but it doesn't pay my rent.
Yeah, that's it, that's it. But yeah, that is the final topic that we had lined up for today. So shall we get ready to wrap?
Yeah, I think so. Today was like our first kind of test episode, and the Asia Online terms were like the easy first topic because it just happened recently,
Yeah.
and we were both a part of it, so it was like a nice one to start off with, especially because I mean PGRS got announced recently, so we can talk about this.
Hmm.
So we didn't want to do a PGRS episode for overseas until like the announcement was out.
Hmm.
So this was like a nice way to like get the first podcast vibes out, and then like next week we'll talk about the English players a lot more and like who our expectations are on and the sites for next year
Yes, that's
or
right.
this
So our
year.
theme for next episode, which is happening 9th of May. So it is the same time as this episode next week. The overall topic is going to be 2026 season expectations. So as Riley said, we're going to be doing even more coverage of individual players and basically just setting up a bit of what do we expect to see? What sort of gameplay are we expecting as well? What players do we think are going to participate? Just a lot of really exciting stuff regarding the season for this year, which, as the announcement has said, there is going to be a Puyo Global Ranking series. So it'll probably be very much in tune knowing that that is happening this year. So very exciting episode next week.
So that one I'm definitely excited for because I want to talk about metagame, but I also want to talk about like how the players might be affected. 'Cause I also
Yeah.
want, as much as I want to talk about players I think will do well, I'm also interested in the players I feel like they won't necessarily do well, but they maybe will have a harder time.
Hmm. Hmm.
I feel like the level for this year has changed quite a bit, especially after Dan kind of did a huge meta shift for English Puyo with
Yes.
his super nasty attacks.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have really been keeping eyes on that sort of play style and perhaps putting a level of that into their own gameplay. But we'll be talking about all of that in more depth next week, so make sure to come around for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next week as well, we'll have a feedback form.
Hmm.
So you can give us your thoughts on what you think of the first 2 episodes. Let us know what we could change, what we can do. Because right now we're sticking with the icons. The webcams might come out for some episodes,
Hmm.
especially for the big ones. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, definitely. And as we mentioned as well, in future episodes, we're looking to have some guests on as well. So if there's anyone you want to see or any topics that you also want covered, feel free to fire them our way because we are very open to feedback and suggestions.
Yeah, I think with that, no better time now than to end it, I think.
Yeah, thanks for joining
Thanks
us.
everyone for watching.
Woohoo! That has been the first episode of Group Bonus, hosted once again by myself, Yoshi, and my co-host.
Yeah, my co-host Riley,
Yes.
helping out.
Yeah, that's right. So with that, we'll be seeing you guys next week for the next episode of Group Bonus. We'll see you all then.
Bye bye.